Welcome back, sports fans. I'm Rydog, and I'm here to level up your Blood Bowl game. Our last video was all about how to move your players around the Blood Bowl pitch, but today we're shaking it up a bit, and today we're going to talk about the combat in Blood Bowl. So today's video is all about blocking. On the face of it, throwing a block in Blood Bowl is relatively straightforward. You roll some dice, and more often than not, someone ends up eating the dirt. But if you're going to get a solid blocking game, then you need to know all the ins and outs of how to do it properly. So in today's video, we're going to cover all of the basics in blocking. We're going to leave all of the skills to one side. We'll cover those next week. So today we're going to cover the dice, how to block, how to get an assist, and how many dice you're going to roll. And we can't really cover blocking without covering the block dice. In Blood Bowl, a set of block dice is 3 6-sided dice. And on these dice are 5 unique symbols. And to kick us off with one, we have Attacker Down, or more commonly called a skull. Now with this result, the player throwing the block gets knocked down. There is no way around that. And this is the worst possible result you can roll. Next up, we have the Both Down. And this does exactly what it says. Both players get knocked down. Now our third and fourth faces are the same. This is the Push. It's the only symbol that appears twice on one of the die. And with this symbol, the defending player is pushed back 1 square. Our fourth symbol is the defender stumbles. Now more often than not, this will result in the defender being knocked down, but not every single time. If the defending player has dodge, this is treated as a push. And finally, we have the defender down, or the POW. This is the best roll you can get in the game, and there is no defense against this. No matter what happens, the defending player is going to go down here. Okay, so now we know what the dice look like, what they do, which ones we want and which ones we don't want. All we've got left now is to head over to the pitch and roll them. Here we've got our plucky lineman back from the movement video. Hang on, we can't keep calling him plucky lineman. Drop me a message in the comments below. Let's have some names for this guy. We'll name him and we'll use that from now on. But back to the action over there. So we've got our lineman and he's facing off against a beastman. Before we can do anything else, we've got to work out how many dice we can roll. Now we saw these in the movement video, but every player has a statistics card. And we covered movement and we covered agility last time. Well, today we're going to have a look at the strength, which is ST on the player card. The average strength in the game is 3. That's handy because both our beastmen and our lineman are strength 3 here. When the 2 players involved in a block have the same strength, you roll 1 dice. Okay, so we've got a roll to push. It isn't bad. And it means the human player can push the beastman back 1 square. But which square shall we choose? Well, depending on the direction you're pushing from, dictates which squares are available. So in this setup, he can push into one of these 3 squares. Now if the block was done from over here, it would be these 3 squares. But for this one, we're just going to push him straight back. When you're choosing the square to push a player into, it has to be an empty square, so there can't be another player in that square, but the ball doesn't occupy a square technically, so you can push a player onto the ball if you'd like to. But we're going to deal with the ball way down the line. There's a lot to cover before we get as far as actually dealing with the ball. Now any of the block results that deal with a push, so a push, a defender stumbles, or a POW, all include a push result. So every time you push a player back, the blocking player can choose whether or not they would like to follow up into the square the beastman used to be in. So here, because we pushed the beastman back, our human lineman can decide whether or not he wants to follow up into the square the beastman used to be in. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Throwing a block is one of the actions in Blood Bowl, and every player can do 1 action per turn. So because our lineman has thrown a block, that is the end of his turn. And because this example only has 1 player per team, it's time for the Chaos to have their go. Now you might remember I said there was 3 dice in a block set, so how do we get to roll more of those dice? Well, that comes back down to the strength. If the blocking player is stronger than the defending player, then you get to roll 2 dice and choose the result you would like. If you happen to be lucky enough to be more than twice as strong, so in this case our strength 3 lineman would have to be blocked by a strength 7 player, then you get to roll 3 dice and choose the result you would like. But you might be thinking, if strength 3 is in the middle and the most common option, then how often do you see strength 7? Well, not that often to be honest. But there is another way to make up the strength. So our Chaos team is going to bring in a second player to help with this block by giving an assist. So by standing our second Beastman in one of the tackle zones of the human lineman, we get +1 strength for the Chaos player. Now this makes the Beastman strength 4, the human stays strength 3, which means the Chaos player can roll 2 dice and choose the one he likes. And given those options, I think we're going to take the POW. Now to demonstrate the 3 dice block, we're going to bring in a strength 2 player. So this is a halfling, one of the weaker players in the game. And he's facing off against our strength 3 lineman. So you can automatically see that that would naturally be a 2 dice block for the lineman. His strength 3 against the halfling strength 2. But when I bring in 2 more players, now providing 2 assists, well that raises the lineman's player to strength 5. Because strength 5 is more than double strength 2, we get to roll that 3 dice and choose the result we would like. And there we go, we've got the POW, so we are going to follow up there. Here the Beastman is going to try and block our lineman, but there is an ogre stood behind him. Now the ogre is providing the assist against the Beastman in the human's favour. Well this makes the human lineman strength 4 and the Beastman strength 3. When this happens, you still roll 2 dice because there is a strength difference, but the stronger team chooses the result. So in this case, the humans choose the result. And with that roll there, the humans are going to pick the skull and knock the Beastman down. Anytime one of your players gets knocked down as a result of their own block, that causes a team turnover. Now these happen from time to time. You don't want to minimise them because it does end your turn early, but sometimes it's unavoidable. Blood Bowl is a game cursed by dice after all. So far, all of our blocks have had assists on one side, and that's relatively straightforward to work out. But when you start adding assists on both sides, things get a little bit more complicated, and this is where Blood Bowl starts to get a little bit tricky for newer players. Working out who is providing assist, who isn't providing an assist, and the overall strength of the blocking players. But don't worry, it isn't that complicated, and you will get there eventually. Now as you can already see, this example is a little bit more complicated than before. We've got a human lineman blocking a Beastman. The human has 1 assist from the Blitzer, and the Beastman has 1 assist from the Chaos Warrior. 1 assist on both sides makes both players strength 4, so we roll 1 dice. Now over here, we've got a strength 5 ogre throwing a block against a strength 4 Chaos Warrior, so normally this would be 2 dice in the ogre's favour. But the 3 Chaos players on the back behind the ogre give the Chaos player +3 strength, +3 assists. Now this is more than enough to counter the strength 5 of the ogre, so it would normally now be 2 dice, but the Chaos player can choose the result. So why don't we do something about that? Well, first things first, we could actually bring a player in here, marking the Chaos Warrior, providing +1 strength. While this provides 1 assist for the ogre, making him strength 6, our Chaos Warrior is still strength 7. So again, still 2 dice, and the Chaos player can choose. Players can only provide an assist when they're not in an opponent's tackle zone. So when I bring this lineman over here, behind our 3 Chaos players, his tackle zones stop those Chaos players from being able to assist in the block. In which case the strength swings back in the ogre's favour and he can roll his 2 dice, and choose the result he likes. Now I know that might seem a little bit daunting, how do I calculate which is which? But it isn't all that complicated once you get going. But I've got 3 more examples for you, so I'm going to put those up on the screen, pause the video if you need to, have a look, see what you think, and when you're happy, play on and you'll see the result. Try and work out if you've got them right. Now to make things simpler, the human lineman is always throwing the block, and all of the players are strength 3. So all you need to worry about here is who is assisting who, and who has had their assists cancelled out. So how did you get on with those? Were they easy? Were they hard? Did it not make any sense whatsoever? Let you drop your answers in the comments below. I'm curious to see how you guys got on. But if you've got any more questions, well, you can put those in the comments as well, or you can catch me live and ask your questions to me, and I'll be able to cover them for you in more detail. But either way, don't worry if you didn't get them all right. That last rule was pretty tricky, and it did take me a while to work this out when I first started as well. Now we've only got one more thing to cover, and it's a little bit of all sorts. This is half movement from last week, and half blocking from this week. Once per turn, one player on your team can perform a Blitz action, and this combines a block with a movement action. So one of your players is able to move up to an enemy player, throw a block, and then either follow up and continue moving, or stay where they are. So how about one more quick example before we go? Our human lineman, who's all the way back over here, wants to block the Chaos Beastman over here. Well, our Beastman's already in one tackle zone, so if we manage to make the block here, it will be 2 dice. So first things first, we're going to move 1, 2, 3. Puts us in range to throw the block. Let's roll those dice. The push is enough, we'll push him back, but we're going to stay where we are, so we don't need to make a dodge, and then continue moving. 5, 6. Now, as you might have noticed, I missed out 4. The act of throwing a block as part of a blitz uses up 1 square of movement. So we moved 1, 2, 3, we hit on our 4th square of movement, and then moved 5 and 6. If I'd chosen to follow up the block, that would have used up my 4th square. If instead of the push I'd made the knockdown, I could have then followed up for 4 and moved 5, 6 to here. Now do remember, you can only make 1 blitz per turn, but you can make as many blocks as you have players. It's also possible to throw the block first and then move, which is a handy tactic for ball carriers when they're trying to escape. And I suppose I want to make one final point. In order to throw a block, a player has to be standing next to an opponent at the start of their turn. Anything else would be counted as your blitz. And it is possible to blitz from the ground, so whilst lying down, you stand up for 3 squares, then you throw your blitz on the 4th. And that, guys, covers all the basics of blocking in Blood Bowl. Now when we combine that with last week's movement video, you've got all the skills you need to move your players around and punch the other team. Now I did say those were the basics of blocking, and that is the basic side of it. But next week we're going to be adding the skills related specifically to blocking, and there's 16 of them, so there's quite a lot to cover. If you've liked the video, then please hit that like button down there, and if you like the channel, well, please subscribe, that really helps. We are pushing on towards 250 subscribers, at which point there is a giveaway to come. But until next time, which is skills, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you soon.